that your mic is on mute. Okay. Oops, sorry there. Okay. We are good to go. Okay. Welcome again, everyone. I am going to welcome our Executive Director, Dr. Shantia Lowe, who is going to get us kicked off this morning. And we are going to move through this pretty quickly so that if you have any questions we can answer quickly and then you can get back to your day. But thank you again to everyone who is here joining us for this very important meeting. Dr. Lowe?
Good morning / good afternoon, everyone. Welcome and congrats on making it to fiscal year 2025 as an OST partner and an OST grantee. As we, as an office, collectively look critically towards our performance as an office for FY24 and how that can inform FY25, our office this year is focusing on 4 thematic elements. Those elements are coordination and collaboration. First page, please. Coordination and collaboration, sustainability, quality programs, and the results of those programs. And as a result, like our district partners, by way of our you as grantees, we as an office are being held accountable for what is being produced by grantees by way of data to ascertain our impact and the correlation of OST programs with children and youth across DC. And what we are finding and what that looks like for our office is that we have found, after we've pulled the FY24 data specifically, that there are some things that need to be course corrected in light of what we found content-wise for the data for grantees. Now, this may be applicable to some of you all, not necessarily to all, but we did find it to be important to start off the fiscal year course correcting some discrepancies that we have found regarding data entries and data content that has been input by grantees in FY24 so that we can do it right the first time, this time around for FY25. And so we've called this meeting in response to the data that we have reviewed from you as our grantee partners, so we can have more accurate data moving forward that is much more representative of the work that is being done by you as our grantees and as our partners as we move forward. So with that said, I'll turn the floor over to the next individual.
Thank you, Dr. Lowe. I just want to remind everyone there is a link in the chat for you to please sign in so that we can take attendance. We will be following up with anyone that did not attend this meeting. So again, please follow the link that is in the chat to be able to indicate that your organization was present. So I want to get us started just in really looking at what we are specifically wanting to talk about today, and that is youth participant data and the importance of complete and accurate youth participant data as entered into CitySpan by our grant-funded organizations. As you can see from this page, this is a sample participant. The complete and accurate submission of this data for this youth, and that's anything that is asterisk or with a red asterisk, is essential. As the OST office, we use this data to match it against data from local education agencies such as DCPS and the public charter school districts and our state education agency, OSSI. And so in order to secure the demographic data on the youth served, such as whether they're English learners, what wards they live in, whether they are students with disabilities, whether they're at risk, homeless, etc., as well as academic, school attendance, and other school-related data for the students served. We need to have this data. This allows there to be a positive match against LEA and SEA, DCPS, OSSI type data so that we can receive that information for the youth that are being served.
Shannon?
Yes?
We cannot see your presentation.
Oh, well, thank you. Let me
Some of us can. I'm not having a problem.
Yes, I can
okay.
see it.
I can see it.
Yeah. Some of us cannot see it for some reason.
When I was using the Teams app, but then when I brought it back up in the Teams browser as a website, it worked. So that might be your issue too.
Oh
I
yeah.
love the way we're helping each other. Thank you so much, everyone, for helping to troubleshoot that. So if you want to try to bring it back up in the browser, it sounds like that might help. Otherwise, I will be sending out the presentation, but what is on the screen is just the youth participant page from CitySpan, where you add a participant or update your participant, and you know that you're able to see the various data that needs to be put in for each youth. And as you know, we talk about why this is important. Is this slide blank to you all? You can see it, yes? Okay.
You can see it.
Yes.
Now it's showing up blank on my page. So I'm like, oh, hold on. Okay. So when we went to match youth data in FY24, less than 50% of the youth that were entered as participants in CitySpan were able to be matched or identified as youth attending a DCPS or public charter school. Now, we do know we have some homeschooled youth participating in out of school time programs, and we have private school youth. And so, yes, that will account for some, but certainly would not be over 50% of the youth. And this is really why we're calling this meeting today, to really talk about, as we start this new fiscal year, why this is so important to pay attention to, and why this is a concern to the OST office. We wanted to just really drive home the importance of ensuring that any information that has a red asterisk in CitySpan must be completed and completed accurately. So what we see, for example, are organizations that will, for home address for the youth, put the organization address all the way down, right? For all of the youth. Or they'll choose January 1, 2005 as a birth date and put that all the way for all youth, which allows you to enter your youth more quickly, but it does not allow for us to be able to match the youth against, again, the SEA and LEA data. So we're really wanting to ensure that this information is being input accurately and completely. And now in CitySpan, when you go back to this previous page, in order to submit this, all of the asterisk data has to be entered. In FY24, you could save and then go ahead and enroll a student into the activities without all of this data being complete. Now you can save, yes, but it has to be in a submitted state, which means all the data must be entered accurately on the youth in order for you to be able to pull that participant into your activities once you set up your enrollment forms in under the sites section. So we just really want to make sure that you understand that, so that you're not saying, hey, where is this student? I enrolled this student. Yes, that student may be enrolled, but if you didn't put the address, the birth date, the grade level, or any other asterisk information, then that student has not been able to be successfully submitted and or enrolled into CitySpan, and therefore will not be able to be added to your attendance rosters under your activities in the site section.
Shanna, there's a question. I don't want to be lost. The question was, are there any new asterisk requirements for this fiscal year that have been added that weren't in last year?
No, there is not. It is the same information as last year. Great question. Okay, so before we move forward and jump into the nuts and bolts of this, we just want to highlight again why this is so important. First of all is data fidelity. As grantees, each of your organizations indicated in both your grant application and your subsequent agreements that you would serve a certain percentage of youth within various targeted populations. That could be at risk, homeless, English learners, students with disabilities, etc. And as a reminder, you receive priority points for agreeing to serve significant percentages of each. So being unable to match your participating youth prevents our office from tracking and assessing your ability to meet those proposed measures. In addition, Having this data allows the out of school time office to accurately demonstrate who is actually being served and therefore allows us to identify any gaps in services across the district so that we can be more strategic in identifying new initiatives or employing new initiatives that allow us to better serve the youth in the District of Columbia. Data from OSSI allows OST Office to assess important outcomes as well, including the impact of OST programs such as positive correlation to school attendance, academic outcomes, etc. So basically, it allows us to make the case for out of school time programming and out of school time funding. Moreover, it's important to point out that being able to access this type of data helps you as the grantee as well, because the youth data allows for you to provide more individualized support to those that you're serving. And it provides really important data that you would need in order to go after additional grant opportunities or other available options based upon youth that are being served by your program. So again, just really want to highlight the importance of having this data so that you know why we're asking for it. So now let's talk about what is being required of our OST grantees. As you can see here in the bulleted list, this is the complete and accurate data entry that must be included for each of the youth that you served. And this is unique individual student data. So again, it should not be duplicated unless like their siblings, then they would have the same address. But please try to make sure that there's an accurate spelling of the participant's first and last name, accurate birth dates, the home address, again, not the organization address, but the home address. We do know that sometimes this can get tricky. What is put down as a home address isn't always the home address. We we are being flexible in this where we do not expect 100% match, but we do want you to strive to always make sure that you're putting down the home address that you have, and then the gender, the current school of attendance, and the school current grade level. Okay, now the easiest thing that we could do is say we need student ID numbers because then that would ensure an accurate match. However, we understand that this would be a huge administrative lift for some of our grantees and a barrier for participation. So we are not requiring a student ID number. We are highly recommending it if you have access to it. If you know your student ID numbers, if you get their report cards, if that's something that you have a data sharing agreement with the school, you have purpose and have are able to communicate with the registrars to get those for your youth, and that's something that you can just include in the student profiles, as it's not a required element for registration or enrollment in CitySpan, but it is an option that you can include that, and that individual unique number will ensure that your youth are being matched. So in order to reinforce the importance of accurate and complete youth data, as of today, the OST office will be implementing a new compliance measure for this fiscal year, which will require a match of 85% or more of your eligible participating youth. So what does that mean? Eligible youth includes youth that are attending DC public schools or public charter schools that have a FERPA consent on file. So we'll have those total youth in the system. If it's say 100 kids, we'll expect that at least 85% of your youth are being matched, and you will receive compliancy credit for that. Now, this is a first year of implementation, so as with anything that we roll out, there will be flexibility, there will be learning from it in the sense that if things come up that we don't know, that will be taken into consideration, and we will, we don't want to create barriers or set grantees up for, failure in this request. Our hope is that this will be something that is easy to meet when data is accurately input. But again, we will always continue to live and learn through these new initiatives so that we are ensuring, that you are able to meet the requirements.
pause 1 second, Shannon. There are some really important questions in the chat. So we can only access data for students who have FERPA consent on file. If they do not have FERPA consent on file, we cannot access their data via DCPS or OSI. But so hopefully that answers your question. But a couple of questions in the chat. One is saying, Shannon, if we can get student IDs from a school, can we just enter only the student ID as opposed to all of those other data points like gender, address, etc.? Because then that can easily allow you to access the information that you need as opposed to entering it manually.
The only thing, and I'm just thinking out loud here, and we would have to work with CitySpan, and DeAndre, you may have additional thoughts on this, but I'm just thinking about when you're taking attendance, like you at least would have to put the student's name, right? Because you're taking attendance and you need to know who these students are. And unless you have all those student IDs memorized, that would be difficult to do. As far as the other information, DeAndre, do you have thoughts on whether, I mean, I understand the question and do think that point makes sense. But do you see any reason that we wouldn't be able to do that?
Well, that is a pretty good question because if we were able to have the student ID numbers, then we can just pull all those student records and they wouldn't have to put it in manually. That was initially the thought when we were kind of brainstorming on how we can increase the match rate with OSI DCPS is around the student ID number. But currently, we don't really have those processes put into place to first take the student ID number and then be able to pull in those student records into the system just based off the student ID number. Not to say that in the future we can't implement those processes with OSI, but currently we don't have it. So even though you do include the student ID number, you will have to put in that information manually. The student ID number is essentially just so that we can match or have a higher match rate with DCPS, with OSI, because it increased the likelihood that they're able to attach those students. Because like you mentioned before, when you have inaccurate data, it's virtually impossible to track these students with other agencies and other data systems. So I hope I answer your question.
I think the real, thing that the issue that we would have to sort out is on the back end with CitySpan that, if you don't have a student ID number, all of those data points are essential to be able to match an OSI. And we would have to figure out, like, if there was a student ID number, then how to override the other requirements. And that is something that isn't currently in place. And so it is necessary to put that other data because we don't have that override on the back end. But that is something we can talk to CitySpan about and see if, how difficult that is to do. And we can, we'll at least inquire into that.
Yeah,
so there are lots of questions. Hold on, there are lots of questions in the chat and hands raised. But Shanna has about 3 more slides to get us through.
Yes, and then we'll open it up.
I'm just going to plug one more question because I think it's also important. Raymond asks, what about incarcerated youth who are in secured facilities? Do we have to submit their names or initials?
No, at this point, that is legally protected information. And so for any court-involved youth, they would be exempt from this requirement.
Thank you, Shannon. Can you please finish up and then we can navigate all of the questions in the chat and those whose hands are raised?
Yes, absolutely. So as with any compliance requirement, OST office wants to ensure that this is not too much of an administrative burden and so are wanting to offer various supports to help you, our grantees, meet this requirement. So first of all, this week we will be sending out your FY24 demographic report. That will include the percentage of youth that met any of the targeted populations that we were able to match for your organization in FY24. It will also include your match rate. So if you had 100 youth served, how many of those were we able to match that are eligible youth have a FERPA consent? And so that way that will provide a baseline for you so that you know how you're doing and where you need to go. We will also be providing you some helpful resources on how to access student ID numbers throughout and throughout the year. Our data team will also be auditing the data and providing notices whenever we identify any incomplete or accurate data. Like, if we notice that same birth dates or addresses are being used, or student forms aren't being submitted because the data isn't there, we will reach out to you. We will also be providing a mid-year report that demonstrates the real percentage of FY25 enrolled youth against our OSSI data. This will provide our grantees the opportunity to course correct. So if you get it and you realize only 76 of the eligible youth are being matched, you will be able to course correct by the end of the year to ensure that you have a higher rate of match. And as always, your grants management specialist will be available to just look through those with you during your monthly or quarterly meetings to assist you if you're struggling to meet this requirement. And then last, I just want to, before we open it up for questions, I also want to highlight 2 additional compliancy measure updates for FY25. The first one that really relates to this, and that is the target demographic enrollment. So, i.e. the percentage of each targeted population that your organization proposed to serve. So this was not implemented in FY24, although it was intended to, simply because we didn't have enough data to do the matches and provide the demographics on the youth being served. But in FY25, it is our intention to measure the actual percentage against the proposed. So in addition to us checking to ensure that 85% or more of your eligible youth are able to be matched, we will be checking to see that 85% or more of the proposed targeted populations that you propose to serve are indeed being served. So if you said you were going to serve 50% English learners, then at least 85%, you need to be at least 85% of that rate. So again, we don't look for 100%. We always provide room for adjustment there because we don't know exactly who our youth are going to be. But when you are doing outreach and targeting populations, you should fall within 85% of what you propose to be served. And that will be included in your mid-year and end of the year progress reports, as well as summer if you're a year round. Again, as long as you meet 85% of what you propose for each population, you'll be compliant for those measures. Also, please note that the FY24 and 25 grant both 24 and 25 grant agreements indicated that all youth in 4th grade and above with SAOY consent on file should be completing the beginning of the year and end of the year youth surveys. That was a change from previous years where I think there was, like a minimum of 10 required. We want to hear from all the youth, not just a handful of youth. We want to know how the youth in your program are doing. So again, we're asking that 85% of the youth who are 4th grade or above who have consent on file, and we are able to run reports on city spans, so we know how many of those are. Say it's 50, then 85% of those 50 youth should be completing the beginning of the year and the end of the year youth surveys, and also summer if you're a year-round grantee. I'm trying to see, just so a reminder here, I have put the dates that the beginning of the year survey should be complete within the first 6 weeks. So program starting today or yesterday, that gives you until November 15th. So again, within the first 6 weeks of programming, and then again, within the last 6 weeks of programming at the end of the year, and then once during the summer program. Okay, so those are important compliance updates. At this point, we want to open it up to questions.
So really quickly, there are tons of questions. So what we're going to do is answer some now in real time, but also follow up via email with answers to those that we haven't gotten to today. So the floor is open if you want to come off mute and share your question.
I see for hand raised, who is this? Portia Richardson.
Hello, good morning. Can everybody hear me well?
Yes. Hi, Portia.
Hi. I just wanted to share, thank you. First of all, thank you guys so much for this meeting. I think that, well, I could speak for my organization and many of that I've connected with, that we understand the value and the importance of having accurate data so that we can track the progress amongst our youth effectively. I did want to raise a couple of concerns. One is, I know that there has been this year we had like the performance ratings for each of the grantees. I heard you speak about the SAO, which is definitely very important. But I think that one of the things that has impacted us have been the high turnover amongst grant managers previously. For example, last fiscal year, last grant cycle, we had 3 different grant managers, all giving us different guidance on different things. I know, for example, for us, we were told that we were exempt from SAO because we had our own internal survey that we were administering. And then this year we were, evaluated based on not doing that. So that's one way that grantees are impacted. I think that also another big challenge is just the ongoing funding delays. For us to be able to effectively facilitate and implement the very effective data process that you all have in place, and even the new and updated ones, we do have to have a person to do those things, and that person has to be compensated to do those things. So when organizations, especially for example for the summer, we have Summer Strong, or even for continuation grants, where we get funding during the summer, and some or many of us did not receive that funding until the 6 weeks was already over for that program. It does put small organizations, especially, in a deficit that makes it very difficult for us to carry out the responsibilities that you guys and that we want to carry out as well, because of those things. So I think that we also just I would love to see as feedback that we just also have a little bit of grace with us understanding the internal challenges that are clearly happening within DC government, OST, whatever, whoever those challenges kind of are impacting, and that we kind of figure out better ways that we can work together. And I did hear some of that grace centered here, but with the new performance system and people, organizations being dinged for certain things and being marked down for certain things, I just don't think it's fair when not everyone has done their part to make sure that that we were set up for success year after year as well. So those are
So,
my major concerns.
Portia, thank you for sharing. A couple of things. We 100% agree with what you're saying regarding delays, because we are equally, if not more, frustrated with the process of getting payments into grantees' hands in a timely manner. And so we are working diligently to get POs out. Like literally this week, our RAA is focused on PO generation. So I understand and I hear what you're saying regarding granting grace, in considering that what we're holding you guys to, we may not necessarily be as equipped to do the same on our end as an office. So holding you accountable was also holding our office accountable for our part in the process as well. Now, with that said, and you guys should know, everyone should know on this call that next week, Thursday and Friday, is the required in-service. And you will learn during that time how our office has been responding and plans to implement new processes as a result of your feedback for the end of your service. So regardless, Touche, we hear what you're saying, Portia, and we are also putting measures in place to account for what oftentimes feels like discrepancies in processes for the OST office. The turnover with the GMSs is something that we're also trying to course correct, but again, we are not seeking to be punitive. We're not seeking to be black and white, because we know that with anything service oriented, there are gray areas. But with that said, again, we have, as a result of our summation of FY24, found this discrepancy that is major for us, where more than 50% have not matched, which means that we have to do a better job, both us as an office and our grantees, in making sure that we input accurate student information. Shanna, you decide who's next. This is a lot of hands are up.
Simon. And we are at 12, so if people need to drop off, please, feel free to do so. But I will stay to answer any questions as long as people have their hands up. Simon?
Hey, Shanna. Hey, team. Thanks so much for taking the time. I have three very quick questions. The first two that you'll be able to answer very quickly. First of all, for next Thursday, just to confirm, for leadership, you're looking for them in the morning. Is that right? Next Thursday morning?
Yes, that is correct. Leadership for organizations, the nuts and bolts of compliancy and such will take place in the first part of Thursday, October 10th. And that is the required session. The afternoon is open for leadership to stay, but also for program staff, your front student serving staff that will be able to benefit from that, as well as on Friday, which would allow you to meet the requirement for training around supporting youth with special needs. That will be offered as part of the trainings on Friday as well. But it is the Thursday that is required for administrators of the grant.
Perfect. Thanks. And then I just wanted to clarify that. Two quick things on what you had just announced. So just trying to, as I'm digesting this, the sounds like the easiest way, if we're able to do it, is to get that student ID number. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. And taking that a step further, is that something that's on everybody's report cards? Because I'm just trying to think through the easiest way to, get that data from our participants who would be willing to share. Are there any? I know you said you're going to mention other ways, but is that on everybody's report card?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, from what I understand, it is. Camille, do you mind coming off and sharing your thoughts? I know Camille comes from DCPS and is a wealth of information as it relates to such, and has developed a really great guide for us for the grantees as it relates to accessing student ID numbers. I'm sorry, Camille, are you able to?
Hi, I'm here. I
Yeah.
was responding to a question in the chat about the timeline for data reports. So if I could just get the question again.
In regards to student ID numbers, they are on report cards?
Report cards,
So
yes.
yeah, the student's ID number for DCPS, it's on their report card, it's on their schedule. If a parent logs into the Aspen parent portal, which is where they can check a student's grades, it's there. It's also on Canvas. Some students also at some DCPS schools use it to log into their devices. So it's like their number that they log into their computer with. But it's definitely on their schedule. It's on the report card. It's in Aspen, and it would also be on the parent side of Aspen, which is where the parents would check their students' grades.
Perfect. Thanks. And Camille's been our grant manager, and she's been awesome. So thanks, Camille.
Thanks, Simon.
Last quick question, and it's not even a concern, but just trying to understand. So reading the description there, the SEO, it's saying 85% of people who have opted in.
Yes.
I would just note that, and I don't have a problem with it. It seems like that though the goal is to get more of those in, right? And so a percentage kind of puts hooks on, it's going to be additional work if you get more people to opt in. So I just note that as a potential concern. Maybe there's a minimum or a number as well. I don't have an issue with it, but just understanding the metrics, thinking through if you have 300 kids and you're able to get 200 in, then you're on the hook for, not on the hook, but 170 versus if you're able to get 50 in, then you're looking at, whatever percentage it would be. So, but everything else makes sense. And thanks for walking us through this. Appreciate y'all's time.
Yeah, great point, Simon. And we will definitely think about that as for organizations that are serving larger numbers of youth. But in general, we want to hear from all of the youth as it really provides, more complete information. But great point. Next is Liddy Bella. Is that Miss Joe? Miss Joe, is that you, Liddy Bella, or is that someone else? You have to come off of mute. Okay, we're going to move to Tracy Johnson.
Got you? You got me?
Okay. Yes, I hear you now.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. About the student ID, on the portal, there's a provision for homeschool. I don't think they have IDs.
No, they do not.
Okay. And on the portal, you also have private schools. It would not match with DCPS, but
That's correct.
For the others, we have it. It wasn't compulsory. And because all of our students are earning credit, their schools have to, they have to the schools have to authorize the credit hours so it has their ID, so we can get that.
Great.
Yeah, because all the kids earn credit because they're high school kids for graduation. So there is a way to get the ID. But we would not have it. We will not have it if they're homeschoolers and if some private schools just love it.
That is correct. That is
Thank you.
absolutely correct. Thank you for
Thank you.
highlighting that. Tracy.
The previous caller, the previous person who just asked the question had the same exact question. I'm from a private school as well and just wondering about the student ID. So I think it's kind of a consensus that we may not have that same information.
That is correct. It's for DCPS and public charter schools that we would be requiring it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes, of course.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Latasia Gilmore.
Hi, yes.
Yes,
I had a question because I was trying to enroll for the Empower and Elevate.
Yes,
So
for the session next week.
Yes. So I was waitlisted, but I was having issues with claiming my spot.
So as long as you waitlisted, you will be fine. It's just that our platform doesn't allow us on Eventbrite to register over 100. As long as you have signed up for the wait list, just show up. You will be fine.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, of course. And that goes for both days next week. I think we're at waitlist status. So, and yesterday, I think was the last day to register. So if by chance you didn't get registered, please reach out to your grants management specialist because that is required. We're going to go to Justine.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm reaching out to ask about when the dosage waiver will be available. I know we've emailed about it a little bit, but since programming starts this week, we just want to ensure we can tackle that and so we can be in compliance moving forward.
Yeah, this is for anyone who has requested a dosage waiver for either dosage or enrollment waiver, and we are in the process. That is being handled by CitySpan. That has to be, as I shared with you, Justine, it has to be adjusted on the back end on a case-by-case situation. So hopefully today. It was supposed to be by last Friday, but we're kind of in the waiting game with them as they are working against the clock on so many things for us to roll that out. But as long as your justification, meets the criteria, I do not anticipate, go ahead and start your programming, and we will get that processed as soon as that becomes available.
Okay,
sorry, I don't
great.
have an exact date because it's a little bit like I said, we're in the waiting game, but I'm hoping that will become available today.
Okay, all right, thank you so much.
Yes, and if you are wanting a waiver, a dosage or enrollment waiver, as we discussed, would be an option for grantees in year 2, you need to reach out to your grants management specialist via email or phone to let them know. The generation of amendments this year only is happening on our end. So we will initiate the process. And as I indicated with the waivers, there's a little extra step where the logic has to be adjusted on the back end before that amendment is generated. So just please reach out to your grants management specialist if that is something you're interested in. And that's going below the required minimum dosage based upon your FY24 data and other important research or information that can be shared. Gala Education.
Hi, Shannon, and thank you so much for this great information. This is Heather from Gala.
Hi, Heather.
I just had a question. We have 3 sessions through the year. We have a fall session, a spring session, and then summer. And we tend to get different populations of students coming in. They don't always make it all the way through the year. So we may have students sign up in fall who don't end up with us in spring. Maybe they're only available in the fall. How should we handle that in order for that not to impact our SIO completion? Because they may start with us and fill out the SIO in the fall, but since they're not with us at the end in June, should we just make them inactive so that that doesn't impact our percentage? Or how would we
Yeah,
handle
any
that?
student that, so this is a good point in general. If if a student is no longer with your program, you want to go in and indicate that they have dropped, not inactive, but dropped. That means that they're attended, because that'll impact your attendance. That means they'll be counted towards your attendance as long as they're active, but after you drop them, or they have dropped from the program, then they'll no longer count towards your average weekly attendance rates. And so then, yeah, they won't show up as an eligible youth for SAO, because this is not a pre-post. It's not, one person looking at what they did in the beginning versus the end. It is the beginning of the year where it was, end of the year where it was. So it does not necessarily have to be the same student, taking both beginning of the year and the end of the year. But if you drop those students, they will no longer be shown as eligible for that at the end of the year.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Yes, of course. I don't see who's number 4 on here. I do see, sorry, I'm trying to look through all the, here we go. Nita Finley.
Hello. Thank you so much for this meeting. I do have one question regarding the compliancy for the priority populations, and specifically for those youth who might identify as LGBTQIA+. In our enrollment, we ask students if they are, right? And some choose to disclose and some choose not to disclose. But I guess my question is, how is that going to be matched up? And are we going to be penalized if some of them are disclosing to us but not disclosing to the schools that they identify that way, I guess? Or do the schools ask that, is my question, I guess, too?
Yeah, no, the schools do not. That is one area. It was held up as an area that we wanted to, identify as an underserved population, but you're exactly right in that we do not have a way to verify that data unless the youth discloses. And the only time is if you are an organization, I think, that is really prioritizing working with the LGBTQIA plus population, then that would be something that you're more likely to know. You're going to ask, you're going to document. You would have to indicate that in the youth profile. That is not something that we would be able to verify through OSSI data. And of course, with that measure, there is going to be more flexibility in what is, considered compliant or not, because as you indicate, that's kind of a personal disclosing information. And so we do not want to require that you have to present that information. But if it is something that you know and that you are trying to target, then we want to be able to offer back to you, you know, to hold up that your organization is supporting and serving youth at that level.
The Ethiopian had their hands up for a while. And guys, please note also, we're not ignoring the questions in the chat. We're going to capture all of them and respond to you guys in a mass email with the answers to those specific questions. We have someone kind of copy and pasting those questions so we can respond to them accordingly. Ethiopian community.
Yes, this is Marion. Actually, I had a question. If you could just repeat that mandatory requirement. There was a meeting coming up that you stated. I lost service, but you stated that if you weren't registered, to get in touch with your grant manager. If you can just repeat that just once more, that statement.
Yeah, our in-service training for all grantees is next Thursday and Friday, October 10th and 11th. The link went out in the all grantees email for you to be able to sign up. The registration did close yesterday. I'm not sure if you're still able to register, but if not, please just follow up with your grants management specialist. It is required attendance on the very first day, October 10th, the morning session, and then it's optional but recommended for the afternoon and Friday sessions, which is more youth development, quality professional development being offered by the Institute.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I just wanted to hear it clearly. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Justine, do you
Ricardo,
have your
Ricardo's
hand
hand was
back
up
up?
from
No.
Ricardo's hand was up.
Okay. Ricardo?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. So I just had a clarifying question. I had two things. Clarifying question. So I know we spoke about the ID numbers and we can get the ID number. That should suffice. However, CitySpan is not currently set up for us to just enter an ID number. We would still have to enter all of the other requirements in order to get the student quote unquote enrolled. Therefore, do you all plan to make any changes to CitySpan to where if we do just enter the ID number that in the name that it can surpass all of those other requirements? And if so, when would that be implemented? Just so that we can start just gathering those ID numbers. Because I know we have a bunch of other asterisks and requirements we have to enter. So if I get the ID number now, then I can enter the ID number, but I would still have to enter all of the other information in order to get that student enrolled, correct, DeAndre? Or
Yes, you would have to enter all of the information at this point. As indicated earlier, we do not have it set up in CitySpan, and that would be something that we would have to work with the developer to see about. And it is a potential opportunity for us to update that, but we haven't spoke to them about it before now, so I do not have any type of timeline as it relates to when that would be done. We do have weekly meetings with them. We have a meeting tomorrow where that can be brought up, and we can talk about whether if you have a student ID number, then it would override the need for entering of the other data. Of course, we would need to have their name still, but we're not sure, one, if that's possible, and two, when it would be possible. So we would have to report back.
Yeah, and Ricardo, the only thing we asked, well, so we're gonna see if we can make that happen. It's a valid point, and we're glad you guys brought it up. We will see if we can have an override. The only thing we ask is if we are actually able to do that, to please make sure everything entered is accurate. Right. Because it will allow us to match student data for those who have consent on file. So once we meet the CitySpan tomorrow, they will let us know if it's actually able to be done. And then we can provide an update to you guys after the fact.
Perfect. Yeah. I appreciate that because it makes sense for,
And I think it also helps our grantees with smaller staff. I know we talked to a grantee that didn't have the budget the budget needed for the staff to be able to manage those records. So in this particular situation, we would just need the student ID numbers, and you would just provide them at the beginning of the year. And once you have all the ID numbers, then we could just populate all the student information. You wouldn't have to manage it. We would provide that for you. You wouldn't have to make sure that it's accurate because it would be coming directly from OST, DCPS, these other data systems. So yeah, that's a good idea.
Perfect. So in the meantime, we will continue to enter in all the required information until we receive something from the OST office about a potential update if that's possible, and CitySpan can do that. Correct? Yes. Awesome. My second thing is I know that I attempted to register, but of course I think I heard you say, Shanna, that it doesn't allow you to register over a certain amount of people. I also was not able to access a wait list. I did email Marcus, but then I realized that Marcus is out. So I just wanted to, should I send you a separate email just about to make sure that I am registered for both days? Because I wasn't able to access the waiting list when I attempted to register.
Yes, please send me an email and I'll check with the Institute to make sure that
Shannon,
you are on the
please
list.
Don't give yourself that responsibility. Please email Kevin Cataldo directly. I'll put his email in the chat. He's managing event. Not one more thing on your list, Shannon. I'll put it in the chat for you guys.
I have Kevin's email, Shantae, and I will definitely
Yes,
send him an email right now.
please do.
Thank you so much.
And also just please show up. If for any reason that you have a question about registration, if you are registered or not, just please show up. We'll take your attendance there.
Georgette? Thank you, Ricardo.
Speak to a little bit about the confusion when it comes to Eventbrite. Eventbrite has a certain capacity for events. It does not mean the event is actually like sold out or you're on a wait list or anything. It just means that like the limit for Eventbrite won't let us add any more people. So you're still able to show up. We just want you to RSVP before.
Thank you, Grace. Georgette?
Yeah, hi everyone. I have a question about the survey. We are running multiple cohort during the school year, and I want to know if we can do the end of school survey at the end of the 8th week instead. Because we are running multiple cohort, they might not be available to be in the program during the 3 cohort of the school year. So at the end of one cohort is 8 weeks.
Yeah, you're on a series model, so you're saying, but as indicated before, this is not no, you want to do a beginning of the year. This isn't a pre and post survey. It is a beginning of the year, end of the year. So what your first cohort at the beginning of the year, you want to do the survey then, and then at the end of your last cohort, even it's completely different children or youth, you need to do it within the last 6 weeks of programming. So you're still capturing like a beginning of the year and the end of the year survey, even if they are not the same youth being served, just because that's the only way that it can be assessed currently within City Span is by the window in which we pull it. What percentage were complete within this certain time period? So if you did it in the middle of the year, it wouldn't even be able to be assessed.
Yeah. It's still a little bit complicated for me to understand because we don't have the same population.
But it's not a pre and post.
Okay.
It's the beginning of the year and the end of the year. So it
Okay.
doesn't matter that it's different youth.
Okay, I got you. Thank you so much.
Yes, of course.
Guys, I'm going to have about 7 more minutes. So please, if you have questions, come off mute. And again, we will follow up via email for those that were in the chat if that we weren't able to answer.
Mazi.
Catherine, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry. I wrote it in the chat, but I wanted to know if there were any promising practices. I just asked, are there best practices for FERPA waivers? Specifically, is it possible to work with schools directly to secure the waivers, or are those things that there's a different set of practices to be able to get them?
The best practice is to include it in your enrollment forms. That's what
Yes.
we ask that all of our grantees do. So when your parents are filling out their beginning of the year enrollment forms or any other documents, that is included both the FERPA and the SAO consent for them to sign right there. They either sign it or they don't. And then, as you recall in City Span, you have to indicate, did they sign the SAO consent? Did they sign the FERPA consent? And as a reminder, you only have to upload that document to each of your youth profiles if you want to see the data. You have to upload that FERPA consent into, like, you'll see the aggregate data, but if you want to see individual data, you have to upload that FERPA consent. But as far as obtaining it, just include it in what parents have to fill out at the beginning of the year. It is not something that you can go off of the schools for anything from the school, because this is allowing your organization to receive the data and allowing OST to receive the data. So any type of FERPA requirements that are implemented through a school system are not going to cover your OST program or the OST office in receiving that data.
So yes, long story short, Mazi, include it in for your program application. Have that as a part of your application process, where families are more likely, if it's done one time, to fill out those forms, whether saying yay or nay. Because if you try to go to the school independently, of course, they're going to be flagging, like, who is this? One that assess students' data. We don't know you. What's the context, etc. So best practice, include it in your application to your program for the initial onboarding of a child and their family.
I was asking because we don't do a physical application. Our application is digital, so
It could be digital too.
Yeah, you just need to include that in your digital application.
Yes.
okay, great. Thank you.
Yes, of course. And we do have, when we do FERPA checks, like, you know, the exporting of data, we do have organizations that'll just send us that demonstrates which parents provided that consent. So that is doable.
We have 4
Marie
more
Mall.
minutes. Marie, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Kind of following on what Mozzie was asking about. So we do include FERPA and SAO in our parent enrollment, but we work with teens and we work with teens in the community, and they are choosing to come to our site on their own. We generally never meet the parents, although we've tried different things to meet the parents. We're completely dependent on the youth to give us their parent contact information. And this, I'm sure there's other organizations in this same boat. So if the youth doesn't give us a parent email or a parent phone number, it's really challenging to reach out to the parent with the parent permission slip that has both those things in it. So I'm curious if other organizations have things they do, or if you had other suggestions, because it's always been part of our parent permission slip form. It's just getting it to the parents to get signed.
Yeah, so I'll help you with that. It's Jackie over at Children's Legacy Theater. So what we do when the young people come in is we give them an application to complete. It has to be signed by the parent, and all that information that we want to get, we put it in that application. And the young people are, if they want to participate, which most do, they're really good about.
How old are your young people?
I work with teenagers, all teenagers.
I guess we've just found it very challenging.
You can always use incentives too, you know. I
Mhm.
know, and we do allow for coverage of incentives with your grant funds if that's something like, hey, just get your parent to sign this and bring it back, and you know, you're
So we
incentivized
could
in
give
this
them
way.
like a $10 gift card if they bring it back,
Yeah,
and we could
yes,
charge that to you?
yes.
Okay.
Shayna, can I also make another suggestion for how we do it? Because we also work with high school youth, and
Yes.
most of our youth are also coming from Majority Ward 578. So unfortunately, there's not a lot of parental involvement for some of them. One thing that we've done is we start our cycles off with an orientation session where we invite the parents to it and we provide them food, and we have the consent forms right in front of them. And so if they're coming from work, they're like, oh, thank you for providing me food. Of course, I'll fill out whatever you put in front of me. Thank you so much.
Great. Yes, that's a wonderful point and example. Thank you, Nita. And then Jackie, I want to come back to you because I think you had a question as well.
I did have a question, and thank you so much for that. I just wanted to know, after we collect all of this amazing data at the end of the year, then how is it used by OST and OSSI?
So it's not used by OSSI per se, but it is used by our office. One, it will be used throughout the year. So in your mid-year progress reports is when you will first see the aggregate data of the percentage of youth that you are being served. As indicated, you know, each organization received priority points if they stated that they were serving a percentage of different targeted population youth. So we will be able to provide back to you your actuals opposed to your proposed so that you're able to see if you're meeting that mark. And then also
I can add one thing. It will also be used specifically by our office to tell the OST story. So we know budget season is coming up. They're going to want to know the impact. They want to know the numbers. And in order for us to tell a true story on how OST positively impacts our community members, which will then likely incentivize or encourage, folks in DC to grant us more funding, we have to show the OST impact on our students. And we can only do that not only through quantitative data, but also through not only through qualitative data, but also through quantitative data as well. And we need that in order to be able to accurately tell the OST story by way of impact.
Okay, that's great, because that's what I was hoping you would say. And then that would help to increase the OST budget, which may
Exactly
fund the small nonprofits.
Yes.
All right.
And
Yeah.
also, as you're developing needs assessments, for potentially other grants or opportunities for your organization to be able to provide verifiable data that you're, 85% of your students are at risk, et cetera, like that type of data will also support your individual organizations beyond just the OST climate as a whole in seeking additional supports.
So we're gonna
I can
take one
also
more
speak.
question. We're gonna take one more question. I want to just also say right here now for you guys that this data, like Jackie alluded to, our goal in FY26 is to have a surge in funding. Ideally, that's what we want. We know budgets are always tight, but we had a surge in FY24, and our goal is to have a surge in FY26. In order to do that, again, we have to tell the OST story of the impact, and we can only do that if grantees share their constant, the students' data with us, so we can get it from OST and our DCPS. We are at time, but I will allow one more question from Tasharna. Go ahead.
Tacharna.
Hey, I don't know if I missed this or not, so I'm sorry if I'm asking a question twice. It's a two-part question as it applies to the data. Have you guys found out when we will have access to that data, like the first quarter or um, that part? And then my second question is ongoing to that. I know that when we originally applied, we kind of like lowball what we thought our at-risk population was going to be because we wanted to make sure we meet that goal. But like as we move forward, are there going to be opportunities for those organizations who are meeting or exceeding their at-risk goals to potentially do an increase of funding or get additional preferential points? Or is it that we should know moving forward every 4 years is when, or every 3 years is when we would that that period for those preference points would be for a 4-year period, and that's how we're being evaluated for the next 4 years or next 3 years? Or is it that you guys are going to take that information and say, hey, organization A, B, and C are exceeding what they said they were going to do per their preferential points, and that might be an opportunity to get additional funds in the future? I don't know if I'm asking that correctly or
Yeah,
if you
no, I
understand.
think I
Okay.
do. To your first question, we are going to be providing this week your FY24 demographic data because, and if you missed the first part of the presentation, we were not able to do a very lucrative match. Less than 50% of the youth that are in City Span were able to be matched, which is the reason that we called this meeting to really talk about the importance of accurate and complete youth enrollment data, um, so that we can match more youth in FY25 with the goal of being 85% match or greater. We will be providing your FY24 demographic data though, so that you can see of the youth that match what their demographics are, their academic at risk. I'm sorry, academic and school attendance data, et cetera. That will come this week. It will also show your percentage of match rate. Then for FY25, the first time we will get the data will be after Q1, and it will be visible in your progress report. Although your progress report in CitySpan won't be due until after end of Q2, it serves as a live dashboard. So you will be able to go in and see what that data looks like at the end of Q1, at the end of Q2. So therefore, you can continue to course correct if you realize that you are under a particular percentage, that you need to recruit from a certain population, et cetera. That data will be, the intent is for it to be available as of Q1 in our progress reports.
Jana, can I also just add, hi everyone, I put this in the chat earlier, but I'm Grace, I'm the public affairs specialist. It also, like, having this accurate data is a benefit to you guys, as it helps me be able to like pitch you to the media in terms of like sharing the impact of your program or sharing more about your program so that you can connect with families, because they see the impact that your program has had on other students and will want to potentially enroll in your program as a result. So it's not just like we're asking you for these compliancy measures, and it's just another thing on your to-do list. Like this is something that will help you guys as well, since it helps us tell a story about your organization and what you're doing for the youth in our city.
Thank you,
Thank you for that.
Grace. We are at time. We have to go. We have to go.
Okay.
You can't keep going.
Katrina, I got your other point too. I just want to say I got your other point. We'll definitely be considering that.
If you have
Thank
any
you.
follow-up questions, please put them in the chat. We want to send an email Q&A for those that we may have missed.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Jackie.